When Abraham Lincoln was shoveled into the tombs, he forgot the copperheads and the assassin in the dust, in the cool tombs. And Ulysses Grant lost all thought to con men and Wall Street. Cash and collateral turned ash in the dust, in the cool tombs. Pocahontas's body, lovely as a poplar, sweet as a red haw in November or a pawpaw in May. Did she wonder? Does she remember? In the dust, in the cool tombs. Take any street full of people buying clothes and groceries, cheering a hero or blowing tin horns. Tell me if the lovers are losers. Tell me if any get more than the lovers in the dust, in the cool tombs. We're here in the old cemetery here in Old Town San Diego. It's almost the Day of the Dead. It's a time to remember our loved ones who passed on, remember our own dead, and also to think about death as a reality, as a part of life. Something as inevitable as this guy with a leaf blower who's ruining my video. Take some of the solemnity away from it. But this is one of my favorite cemeteries to visit here. I want to show you a couple of my favorite graves here in the Old Town Cemetery. First, well, let's go right to the main guy right now. Let's go take a look at the grave of Chief Antonio Garra. He was a leader of his people. He was a leader of the Cupeño people, and he led an uprising against the U.S. government for exactly the same reason that the U.S. founding fathers rebelled against England: taxation without representation. The U.S. government was taxing the Cupeño native people and didn't give them any representation in the U.S. government. And Chief Garra, he was a brilliant man. He spoke his own language along with English, Latin, I think a couple others. And so he led this uprising against the government, and when he was caught, he quoted to the U.S. authorities, he quoted their own founding fathers to them. He quoted Thomas Jefferson and others, saying, hey, why can you guys rebel against England for these reasons, but we can't here on our own native land? So he was murdered. He was assassinated here in the graveyard. This is his grave. So whenever I come down here, I come and stop here and pay my respects to one of these great men, great fallen leaders of the native people. The Cupeño people, later on, they were driven off of their land, driven off to what's now a Pala Indian reservation north of here. And a lot of people died in the process, so it's been described as the California Trail of Tears. So I always come here to visit this grave and another I want to show you. Chief Garra, he was assassinated by gunfire. He was made to stand at the edge of his grave, and he was dignified right to the very end. He had his composure. He spoke very eloquently to the men who were about to kill him, and they shot him and let his body fall directly into his grave. So here at the Old Town Cemetery, there are a lot of other historical figures. It would really take all day to point out all of them, but another person that I always come to visit is Bill Marshall, who's buried over here at the other end of the graveyard. Bill Marshall's right here at the very corner. Now, I know he used to be buried just outside of the walls, outside of the Campo Santo, outside of the holy ground, because he was executed. I don't know if they moved his body or if it's still outside the walls, But here's the memorial to Bill Marshall, and he's a fascinating person. He was an American man from Rhode Island, white guy, not a native man, but he sympathized with the cause of the Cupeño, and he actually lived with the Cupeño in that community. Legend has it that he was actually married to Chief Antonio Garra's daughter. And so when the uprising happened, he took part in it. He took up arms with them. He saw it as a just cause. And he was caught, and him and Juan Verdugo, they were both caught. They were both participating in that uprising, that resistance. And so they were both stood on a wagon right here at the edge of the cemetery. They had the nooses put around their necks, and then the horses pulled the wagon out from underneath them, and they were just left to strangle to death. Very long, painful death. So here in this season of the Day of the Dead, coming up on late October, early November, we come here to the Old Town Cemetery to remember our dead and remember our history. In the dust, in the cool tombs.